Here's a winter camp advert just came out and said, Lexi.
It was Lexi, my grandma.
Good morning.
Mom.
It is good to see you all here bright and early this morning. I hope everybody had a wonderful night's sleep. I did. Took me some NyQuil about 11 o'clock and said, I'm going down. And it worked. We will begin lesson 5. Hopefully we'll end lesson 5 too for once, maybe end of class on time. And get through it all. Make friends of God's children. Let's go to God in prayer as we begin. Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the opportunity we have to open your word today and to study ways that we can live a better life, live a more fulfilled life, live closer to you and live closer to each other. We pray that as we enter into this period of study that our minds are open, our hearts are open, and we strive to apply what we learned today to our lives. Pray this in your Son's name. Amen. Now, I think as Christians, one of the hardest things for us to do is to make good choices. Anybody disagree with that? I think that, we look at, as Christians, your option is sin or not sin. And I think we all tend to struggle with making good choices. Now, it may not be a continual struggle every single day. I gotta, I'm being pulled between the two. But it's something we struggle with. It's a hard thing for us to do. We choose based off of what we want instead of what we need. We choose based off of desire instead of common sense. I walk through the grocery store and I don't need those jalapeno Pringles. But I desire them and I want them. I don't need those double stuffed Oreos. But common sense loses out. I could use that broccoli, but no, the Oreos sound a lot better. I have chicken in the fridge, but I'm on my way home, and Wendy's has a pretty good chicken sandwich, and it's already, I don't have to go home, and I don't have to prepare it. So which one do I choose? My desire outweighs my commitment to eat better. Those may seem like silly, simple choices in life we make. But we get to the more difficult choices, such as the things I need to stay away from to keep myself from sinning. I need to avoid alcohol to ensure that I don't slip into sin. I need to control my tongue. I need to do this. I need to do that. Each one of those are individual choices, aren't they? You can't make me not get those jalapeno Pringles. No matter how much you try and talk me into not getting them, if I want those jalapeno Pringles, I'm getting them. It's my choice to make. My friends, my loved ones cannot make that choice for me. They can't make the right choices. They cannot make me make the right choices. They are choices that I have to make for myself. I won't go to heaven or hell because my friends, and my friends won't go to heaven or hell because of me. I choose my destination based off of my choices and not my friends and not my loved ones. So what's the point of this entire lesson on making friends of God's children? What's the point of an entire lesson dealing with friends if life comes down to choices that I make or I don't make?
You're also influenced.
Okay.
People influence you.
Okay.
No matter how much you want to deny it and say, well, I'm stronger than that, or, I could be a good influence on them, inevitably, some aspect of who you're you're around and what you're around is going to leak into your life to some extent. It just will.
Okay.
For the reasons that you were already mentioning, because, we're weak-willed and, those kinds of things. And so the people that you're around on a daily, weekly, whatever basis influences those decisions that are ultimately your own choice.
Right. Good point. Life, go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I think this is more talking about stacking the deck in your favor, because it is, everything that you said is absolutely true. Absolutely true. Okay, so how do we go about dealing with that part of my nature then? I have a really strong sweet tooth. Chocolate is, angels singing in my ears. If I can make myself just walk by it in the store, then it's not in my house to tempt me all the time. I just have to make myself take a few steps by it, and then I don't have to worry about it. And this is like that. You're kind of stacking the deck in your favor. I'm going to put these things in place in my life so that I am not continually tempted. Now, do I think that you should never have a friend that's not a Christian? No, I don't believe that at all. I don't think it's realistic, and I don't even think it's helpful. I have some of my best friends. I have a found brother who is not a Christian. I wouldn't trade him for anything. But, that's just also the way it is.
Right. And that's, gets back to what Tricia was saying. If you and I are walking through the grocery store, I probably wouldn't be the person you would want walking beside you going, ooh, look at that chocolate, man.
Yeah.
I could use some of that. You want some? Oh, we should get some.
Halloween candy's on sale.
Yeah, exactly. That is not
That's
a
50%
good
off right there.
opportunity for us. Life is not meant to be gone through alone, is it? We see that from Adam. It wasn't good for man to be alone, so he made a helper. We rely on each other to get through this life. Our friends and our loved ones are in our lives to help us navigate, to help us walk down that grocery store aisle, to make sure that we stay away from the things that we shouldn't be around. Well, it's true that I am responsible for my own decisions, and nobody else is responsible for it. Those I choose to be around will affect each and every decision that I make. It's whether they affect it in a good manner or a bad manner. If I surround myself with people who order dessert with every meal whenever we go out to eat, that may not be good for me if I'm trying to diet, because that cheesecake sure does look good. Man. If I surround myself with people that drink when I try to refrain from alcohol, I may find myself having a hard time refraining from alcohol because I'm around it all the time. The same is true if I hang around with friends who use bad language. The same is true if I hang around friends who gossip. These are things that are going to pull me in a certain direction. But the same thing is true if I hang around with people who lift me up, who keep their speech in the way that it should be, as opposed to going in a wrong way. So what kind of people should we associate with?
The ones that focus upon God,
Okay.
take the long view of things.
Okay. Why the long view of things?
So we don't just focus on the here and now only, miss wider, more deeply involved things.
Okay. How many of you mow your lawn? You ever notice if you're mowing your lawn and you're looking down at the wheels in front of you, what happens? It's going to be like this. If you put your sight down the row at a certain point, whenever you mow, it doesn't matter, how bumpy it is, you're going to be going in a straight line because you're looking at something from a different perspective. If you're looking right in front of you, you're never going to go in a straight line. The same thing is true with our life. We need to have a long-term set vision of where our life needs to be. And if we don't have that, our short-term goals are going to be all over the place. And that is why friends are so important to us in choosing those friends properly. Anybody else?
I would say that at the same time, you can't lose sight of the wheels in front of you, because if you do, you're going to miss that low-lying anthill and step in it and have ant bites all over your ankles.
Right.
Oh,
And that's very, very true. And that's why, number one, you have to have a long-term goal. But once you have your long-term goal, you've got to have the short-term goals that you keep looking at to make sure that you're hitting those goals. Otherwise, you're going to miss them, or you're going to step in an anthill and you're going to be suffering for a week.
It's also, this can become a sticky situation too, though. We can, Daphne already hit on it. We all know that all of our friends are not going to be what we would call New Testament Christians.
Right.
Like you said, it's not realistic, but it's also not what we're told to do. We're supposed to be in the world, and letting our light shine and all of those things too. So it kind of becomes a sticky situation sometimes when you're talking to people and they throw that in your face. And I don't know, to me, it's kind of all about balance. And some of my best friends are also not what I would call a New Testament Christian, but they're also people who have the same basic, at least moral beliefs that I do, and aren't going to lead me down really dark paths and stuff like that. So, but sometimes that balance and trying to explain that to people is hard too, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, that does make sense. And we'll get into that as we talk about the people we should avoid, because the people we should avoid is not non-Christians. That's not the people we should avoid. There are certain types of people we should avoid, and we'll get into that here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate about the kinds of relationships you have. I have a short list of people that I consider to be wise. They are Christians, they're learned, they are this, and because, life doesn't go along smoothly. It's complex. And sometimes you need somebody else's opinion, you need somebody else's input to help you make a decision or to help you frame something. Well, I have a short list. It's got about 3 or 4 names, and I call those people and I say, here's my question, blah, 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 blah. And it's extremely helpful to have people like that in your life. I don't know how I would survive without people like that in my life. And so when you're looking at the kind of relationships where you're going to derive that, then yes, those have to be God-fearing Christian people. The guy you go out to the movie with or the girl you go out to the movie with doesn't necessarily have to be that.
Right.
So.
And the way the book broke this down, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me because it broke it down into 2 categories. Anybody know what those 2 categories are?
Black and white.
What's that?
I said black and white. I was making a joke.
There you go. It's those who fear the Lord and those who walk in wisdom. So what do we know about those who fear the Lord? The fear of the Lord is what?
The beginning of wisdom.
It's the beginning of wisdom. So to me, those 2 categories go hand in hand. If you fear the Lord, you are starting walking in wisdom. You have that walk in front of you. We see that in chapters 1 and 9. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of understanding. It is the beginning of wisdom. You can't have one without the other. If you fear the Lord, you are walking in wisdom because you know who God is and you respect Him and you appreciate Him for who He is and what He's done. The opposite is what? Those who don't fear God are not walking in wisdom. We'll look at it about those with whom we should avoid is those who don't walk in wisdom, or those who don't fear the Lord walk in foolishness. It's amazing the difference in the life of the 2 types of people and their influence on you. If we associate with those who fear God, they will help us to make the right and wise choices. And I believe that goes down to what you were saying, Tricia, is, you can be around people who may not be New Testament Christians, but they do have a fear of the Lord. They understand who God is and they understand what He does. They may not understand what it means to be a Christian. They may not understand what it means to follow Christ wholly, but they have that respect and they have that fear. And that's important to have among our friends. Does that mean that's the only type of people we can hang around with? No, we'll get to that a little bit more. But they're not going to push us to do things that appeal to pride. They don't. They appeal to arrogance, like we saw when the devil tempted Christ. What did he appeal to? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. Now, I'm not saying that the devil was Christ's friend, but that is the type of, that's why you have to be careful when choosing your friends, is how they're going to pull you away, what they're going to appeal to when you're with them. We're more likely to live a respectful and reverent life to Him, knowing He has a plan for us, and if we stray from that plan, we harm ourselves and those that we associate with. We have just that same effect on our friends as our friends have on us. We think about what kind of people I should hang out with. Well, what kind of person should I be to hang out with? What should I provide to my friends, to my loved ones? Have you been around people who, when getting together to watch movies, want to watch something that's inappropriate, want to watch stuff with a lot of language, sexual situations, inappropriate movies, and whenever you go over, you wonder, what am I going to have to deal with? What am I going to have to avert my eyes from? What am I going to have to block out of my head? There's a big difference between going to somebody's house like that and going to somebody's house knowing, I don't got to worry about it. I know that the movie we're going to watch is going to be good. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to see, what I'm going to hear, what I'm what kind of inappropriate situation I'm put in. The only thing you have to worry about is whether it's going to be one of those Hallmark Christmas movies. You just know that you can relax. You don't have to worry. Proverbs 13:20, Solomon tells us, he who walks with wise men will be wise. One thing I've learned is that if you are around people who are smarter than you, man, it makes you up your game. What's that word he said? Oh yeah, I got to remember to look that up when I get home. Because I have no idea. I'll just shake my head and say, oh yeah. Or, that's what the quadratic equation is? Yes, I don't remember how old I was when Lacey taught me the quadratic equation song. But she was in high school, and I was well into my adulthood, and I'm going, okay, I cannot figure this thing out. So it helps you. It makes you up your game. It makes you try harder whenever you have people around you who excel. Proverbs 27:17. Anybody know what that is off the top of your head? Probably not. As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. What's that mean?
I know what you just said.
Don't be around those who dull you.
Exactly. You got people who can sharpen you, and you got people who can dull you. The people that dull you is like beating your head up against, or beating a knife up against a piece of rock. All it's going to do is dull you. It adds nothing to you. It just harms you. There's absolute truth in that. We are either sharpening ourselves by those with whom we associate, or we're dulling ourselves. Everyone does something for us, don't they? Everybody we're around does something for us. Whether it's they sharpen us or they dull us. Okay?
This is something too, because especially in this day and age, we tend to increasingly want to live inside an echo chamber where our own thoughts and ideas and stuff are just being bounced back to us. But I actually think it's better if you have those other voices, because sometimes you get caught into it. I should say I do. This, where I'm thinking I'm right about something, or I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing about something, and I'm not. And if I don't have those other voices in my head, then I have no way of coming to that conclusion. Now, it doesn't mean that you can weight every voice the same, but it is a good thing to not completely surround yourself by something that's only going to feed what you already think. It's good to take out what you think and test it. I keep thinking about the Bereans, about they were more noble because they tested everything.
Okay.
So you've got to take all of this. It's like all of Proverbs. They're truisms, but they're not absolute, emphatically, never going to fail. Truth is the way other things are.
Right. There, Proverbs isn't a book of absolute truths. Are there absolute truths in there? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But can you look at every verse and say that's absolute truth?
In every case, all the time.
Right. There's going to be exceptions, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart. That is not absolutely true. That is a general truth. That if you raise a child in the way he should go, what? He'll keep that way. He stands a better chance of keeping that way than if you raise a child poorly and not in God's instruction. So they're not absolute truths, but we have to look at it. We determine whether or not it holds true. So what kind of people should we avoid? We talked about the kind of people we should associate with. So what kind of people should we avoid?
Well, again, so when I've heard iron sharpens iron, especially in a business world context, it's more about making sure you're allowing people to challenge you because it helps you think better, rather than like what you're saying, where you're insulating yourself with people who are saying the same thing over and over again. But I also think what Daphne said is very real, that you have to have circles of trust. I think it's really hard to think about who we should avoid. For me, it's easier to think about it as who should I allow in the circle of trust and who should I not? Or in what level of the circle are they allowed to be in?
Okay.
I don't like the way the book writes it all about evil men. I want to feel like it's the sin, not the sinner.
It is about the challenge. We should surround ourselves with people who challenge us, because remaining a Christian is a challenge. Pushing ourselves away from sin is a challenge. And if we're around people who try and help us stay on the path that we know we need to be on, that is a challenge. It's a challenge for them helping us. It's a challenge for us walking it. It's a challenge for us helping them. So I think that's definitely part. I mean, that's part of the sharpening each other is, man, I'm struggling. Well, I'm here to help. I'm here to challenge you. I'm here to knock off those dull edges, knock off the burrs. That's what being friends is about, is helping each other, and that's challenge.
I don't disagree with anything. Those are the people that sit as that little devil on your shoulder telling you that it's okay. It's okay to do this.
Right.
It's okay to, go to this bar. It's okay to, watch that porn. It's okay to, do what, X, Y, Z, whatever. And I think those are the people that we are supposed to avoid in pretty much any circle of our relationships. And so I think there is a line between those that aren't Christians that we associate with, that do still sharpen us in one way or another.
Right.
But then those who are going to sit as that little devil on our shoulders, trying to convince us to go ways that we shouldn't go, and we should avoid that.
Right, because even those who are outside of Christ, who are our friends, that's sharpening, because it's sharpening us when we try and talk to them, it's sharpening us when they talk to us, it's sharpening us all around, Rick.
I think a lot of the points have been good. I think one thing we have to consider is maybe avoid isn't the right word if it has a negative connotation. Obviously, we're supposed to try and influence others, so you can't completely avoid them in the sense of never having contact. I think the other side of that, whom should you associate with, is the better question, because that narrows down who we spend a lot of our time with, who do we spend our entertainment time with, who do we study with when we're trying to improve because we lack something. We go to someone who we think can help us understand it. I was listening to a sermon yesterday that was talking about something very similar. He was talking about the fact that he has an inner circle and an outer circle, like it's been said. And the inner circle are those that are going to be someone who makes him better. And the outer circle aren't people that he never associates with. There may even be Christians in the outer circle, but they're people that may not improve him.
Right.
And so he quoted an author who had said, "You are the average of your 5 closest associates. Your 5 closest friends." And so if you are surrounding yourself with people who are going to lead you in a different direction, don't always strive to be the best in the group, because you're going to fail at some point and you're going to be led in a negative way. So always try and surround yourself with people that make you better and help you improve, and always try and be someone who makes others better. And so again, it's who you spend more of your time with. I think it's not that you can't be around non-Christians and you can't be around Christians who are struggling. You have to be there for them, but you also have to consider that I want to go to heaven, and I want to serve God the best I can, so I need to also surround myself with those who give me that input and that encouragement.
Right. And I think that's why it's important, as the book talks about it, there are specific types of people we need to not surround ourselves with. There's types of people that we need to be careful that whether we have them in our lives or not. Psalm 119:10 says, "With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. So let me walk on the path that you have laid out for me, and let me not wander from it. Don't let me be pulled away from your path that you've set out." Can our friends pull us from that path? Absolutely. I don't know how many of y'all have been pulled from that path by your friends, but I know I've been there. The first thing the book says the people we should avoid is foolish people. They help make it easy to wander off the path. So we talked about this before. When we talk about fools, what is it that we mean?
Disrespecting God.
Okay, disrespecting God. We're not talking about people who are just silly, people who are dumb. That's not what this is talking about. It's talking about those who do whatever is right in their eyes. They don't care what God has to say. It's, I want to do what I want to do because I want to do it. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of the fool is right in his own eyes." And then 13:20 says, "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. But the companion of fools will suffer harm, will suffer destruction."
That's wise.
Ex-wife, they become fools. We are who we surround ourselves with. Can we have somebody who may be an atheist in our life that we consider a friend? Oh, yeah. But what do we do when we're with them? How do they sharpen us? Well, they can sharpen us intellectually. It's good to know what people who don't believe in God, who don't know what we believe, doesn't it? If you've read any of Dawkins' writings or anything like that, God delusion, things like that, it challenges you. Now, not that Dawkins was a friend of mine or anything, but these things are good and beneficial to have in our lives, but how do we let it affect us? How do we surround ourselves with it? It's easy to slowly start sliding down a slope, isn't it? You're on this slope outside and it just rained. There's no stopping. You just speed up till you get to the bottom and you just keep going into somebody's car, unfortunately. When we surround ourselves with foolishness, with those who do what is right in their own eyes, you surround yourself with people who are prideful, people who are arrogant, people who don't care about God. And that is harmful to us. It's harmful for us to be around because it's easy to adopt that feeling. The second and third group in the book, I kind of feel we can lump together even though they seem quite different. Anger and laziness and gluttony. How do you lump those together?
All lack self-control.
Self-control. I don't control my attitude, so I become angry. I don't control my eating, so I become gluttonous. Man, I don't control how much I relax, so I become lazy. I become slothful, so that all I ever do is relax. I wish. Okay, that probably wouldn't be nice, but need more relaxation. We adopt a mindset of looking at things from a bitter perspective. Who are they angry with? Well, if I'm around myself with somebody who is always angry, what's that do to me?
It at least puts you on edge.
It puts you on edge. If they're angry with somebody, what are you likely to do? You may get angry with that person, or you may have a bad image of that person. It may affect how you view that person. Are there angry people in the church? Is that damaging to the church? Is that damaging if I'm around that person and then it affects my feelings towards that brother or sister? I don't even know why they're angry, but I'm angry too, and I don't like them. That happens. We have to be careful on who we surround ourselves with. Yeah, we have brothers and sisters, and yeah, we need to be a family. But we have to be careful because it even works its way into the church. We talked a little bit about this last week when speaking of lying, but out of the mouth proceeds that which fills the heart. Excuse me, that which fills the heart. If you have somebody who's angry in your life, what's in their heart? It's full of anger. It's full of bitterness. It seeps out, and it seeps into your life as well. It rots from the inside, and it will turn on us if we're around them. What about gluttony? Or those who are given to alcohol? Or those who are given to slothfulness? How does that affect us if we're around those people?
Makes it easier to start rationalizing it yourself.
Okay. If I'm a person who is trying to diet, trying to eat better, what's going to happen if I'm around somebody who doesn't care what they eat? Makes it harder for me. Hey, come on over to my house. We're gonna grill out, and they have like hot dogs and 80-20 hamburger meat and got a bunch of French fries and potato chips and no vegetables, and that's going to make it a little more difficult, isn't it? That seems like a silly analogy when we look at our salvation. But the lack of self-control in whatever form it takes affects us as Christians. We find ourselves falling into that lack of self-control. Maybe I need to be more active. I'm not going to find it easier to be more active if I'm around somebody who doesn't want to do anything at all. They just want to sit around and do nothing. Hey, why don't we just sit around and talk for a couple hours? Well, I really need to be active. No, you can do that tomorrow. Well, Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Next thing I know, 2 weeks have passed and I've done absolutely nothing. It affects us.
You know,
Yeah.
this is one of the things why it says that, the word, or honoring the word, learning about God, is the beginning of wisdom. Because God talks about all of these things in the Bible. And some things we understand, well, yeah, totally, I get why that's a bad thing to do. Some things we don't. It's like, why would he care about that? But the fact is that we know that he does. We know that he's spoken to it. Because, and this is why this is the beginning of wisdom, because just about each and every one of us have gone through and done some of these things, and have been this person, or have indulged in these things. If you have that in your mind, that word in your mind, you know that you shouldn't be doing that. And the chances are you're going to get yourself out of it and come back to what you know to be right. If it's not in your mind, if you don't give it any weight or any credibility, then you have no way back. You're just on this path.
Right.
Once you start down it, there's no reason to come back. There's no reason to do anything different.
Right. That's true. You've got, if it's in our minds, write it on our hearts, write it, the frontlet. Right there in your head. You're going to know it. And when you depart, you know what it says and you know how to get back. Even more important, maybe it'll keep you from wandering off that path and getting hurt in the process. How will being around those who lack self-control affect my life as a Christian?
There's always the easy way, there's always the hard way. I had a young boy here, actually years ago, a couple years back, picked up the easy way for me. And whatever he meant by that, he had an idea of the differences. The easy way is the way of the flesh, the immediate gratification. Then we move on from that to Christ, the harder way, to obey him and follow him.
If I'm around people who want the easy way, I surround myself with people who want the easy way, the people who may be lazy, am I going to be motivated to get out there and proclaim the gospel to those around me? Or am I going to find myself in a rut of, okay, well, I'll come to services on Sunday and that's going to be it. I've done my job. I don't want to go, too crazy, because that's all I know is being around these kind of people. I'm less likely to participate in things outside of these walls. I won't have the self-control to do what I need to do. In Proverbs chapter 23, starting in verse 19. Proverbs 23, starting in verse 19. It says, "Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Do not be not among drunkards, or among gluttonous eaters of meat. For the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags." What's that telling us? Nothing. Be careful who you're around, because it's going to have consequences for you. Is he talking about drunkards? Is he talking about gluttons? Absolutely. Is he talking about more than that? We talk about absolute truth or general truth. This is a general truth. That, yeah, he's talking about drunkards. He's talking about gluttons. He's talking about slothful. He's talking about any number of people who this applies to. Can this apply to many ways in our lives? That we should be careful who we're around, because it will bring us ruin. Absolutely.
Well, to your point earlier, I think this all lumps under those that that disrespect God, because self-control is an offer on. There's levels of self-control, and I think all of us have dealt, like with Daphne saying, we've all dealt with anger, we've dealt with overeating or over drinking or over laziness or whatever, and again, we're supposed to be here to help each other, not to say, oh, well, you're too fat for me to hang out with, obviously you're a glutton. I mean, that's not, it's gotta be the people who say, I don't care what God says.
Right. And it's important for us to remember these are people we surround ourselves with. If we have a group of friends who lift us up, and we've got that one friend who's slothful, we got that one friend who's gluttonous, if we surround ourselves with the people we need to surround ourselves with, we're going to be sharpening each other. And if we have a person who maybe we can help along the way, that's not a bad thing, unless we find ourselves ignoring our group of friends who are lifting us up. So it's not, you cannot ever associate with this kind of person. It's about making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, so that if you have people who come into your life, you can help them and you won't be harmed in the process. Same is true for work. We look at that, drunkards and gluttonous that we just read about. We can put work into that, can't we? It's not saying, we should all quit our job. But can we not be harmed by work? We put too much time in at work at the detriment of our life, at the detriment of our marriage, at the detriment of our health, our family. These things all fall into it. And that's a lack of self-control. We don't control how much we work. Now, what about avoiding those who teach sinful things? What's that mean? A slothful person, a glutton, lazy, drunkards, those who work too much. Do they all teach us sinful things? Mm-hmm. Yeah, through their actions. But when we look at 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, bad company ruins, or bad company corrupts good morals. What's that talking about?
A little bit of leaven.
Okay. A little bit of leaven. Leaven's a whole lump. When we read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, bad company corrupts good morals, he's not just talking about bad people. He's not talking about those who are drunkards or anything like that. He's talking about people who are teaching false things. Specifically, he's talking about those who are denying the resurrection. That's what he's dealing with here. So we have to be careful about surrounding ourselves with those who teach false things. Don't hang around with those who obscure the gospel message. The more you're around them, the more you may begin to think like them. You think they would You think the Corinthians would have tolerated somebody from outside coming in and taking their father's wife?
They tolerated a lot of stuff before Paul wrote a letter.
They tolerated a lot of stuff, but what do we see? We generally see a gradual, kind of that slippery slope where things just slowly start picking up steam. Something comes in your midst, you're generally pretty quick to say, whoa, let's not do that. But when you start accepting things slowly, before you know it, you have somebody doing something like taking their father's wife.
We started this class talking about influence, and I like the way the preacher says in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, he says, I applied my heart to know, to search and seek out wisdom and the reason of things, to know the wickedness of folly, and I think that's the key, to know the wickedness of folly, to know what, if I let these people influence me, to know what the wickedness can be, to know even of foolishness and madness. And that is the beginning of wisdom, the fear of the Lord, and the beginning of knowledge is to know what wickedness can do to us.
Right. You've got a lot of recovery groups and things like that who will tell you, you don't have to worry. You make a mistake, you do something, you don't have to worry about it. Your salvation is guaranteed already. You don't have to worry about it. You shouldn't let that affect you. Just know that you're always going to be saved, and if you mess up, you don't have to worry about it. Man, that's appealing, isn't it? I can mess up, and I don't have to be worried about my salvation. That's very appealing. It's very easy for me to get drawn into that. I got divorced, and it's not a scriptural divorce. It's really appealing to listen to somebody who says, it's doesn't care. You can get married. That's appealing.
He should be happy.
He wants me to be happy. But if I'm around those people long enough and I surround myself with those people, what am I going to start doing? It's easy for me to start, you know what, they may be onto something. I'm going to have to read into the Bible what I want it to say. We have to be careful about who we surround ourselves with. And we are way out of time. Sorry about that, guys. I appreciate all the comments.